Love can turn deadly in the most horrifying ways. A Brazilian man caught on elevator cameras, moments before murdering his wife. A newlywed bride decapitated by the husband who once swore to protect her. And an ex-Marine who stabbed, mutilated, and dumped his girlfriend like trash. These aren't just crimes, they're chilling betrayals.
Did you murder your wife?
No. I just
shot and killed my wife.
Brace yourself as we uncover the horrifying cases of men who killed their girlfriends or wives, Part 1. It was a case that shocked Brazil, one that unfolded moment by moment on security cameras. On July 22, 2018, Tatiana Spitzner, a 29-year-old lawyer, was found dead after falling from the balcony of her apartment in Guarapuava, Paraná. But the truth wasn't hidden in mystery. It was caught on tape. Security footage showed her husband, Luis Felipe Manveler, a 32-year-old biology professor, physically assaulting her in various locations: the garage, the elevator, and their apartment, just moments before her fatal fall. He was later seen dragging her lifeless body back inside and attempting to clean the crime scene. His subsequent flight, which ended in a car accident over 320 kilometers away, only added to the horror. Manveler claimed Tatiana jumped, but the evidence told a different story. An autopsy revealed that she died from mechanical asphyxia and had a fracture in her neck, suggesting she may have been strangled before the fall. On May 10, 2021, after a high-profile 7-day trial, he was convicted of femicide, false imprisonment, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 31 years, 9 months, and 18 days in prison. Her death became a symbol of Brazil's domestic violence crisis, sparking conversations about justice, accountability, and the dangers hidden behind closed doors. The case highlighted the country's struggle with femicide, which had reached a record high of 1,133 cases in 2017. On Christmas Eve 2002, Scott Peterson, a 27-year-old woman 8 months pregnant, vanished from her Modesto, California home. Her husband, Scott Peterson, claimed he had been fishing that day, but suspicion quickly turned to him. As the search for Lassie intensified, Scott's lies began unraveling.
Did you murder your wife?
No. I just thought.
Then came the bombshell. Scott had a mistress, Amber Frey, who had no idea he was married. She came forward with damning evidence, recorded phone calls where Scott pretended to be a grieving husband while making romantic promises to her. On April 13th and 14th, 2003, Lacey's remains and those of their unborn son, Connor, washed ashore separately in San Francisco Bay. On April 18th, Scott was arrested near the Mexican border, carrying cash, a disguise, and survival gear. In 2004, he was convicted of first-degree murder for Lacey's death and second-degree murder for Connor's and sentenced to death. But in 2020, his death sentence was overturned by the California Supreme Court due to issues with jury selection, specifically related to potential jurors' views on capital punishment. In 2021, he was resentenced to life in prison without parole. Though Scott maintains his innocence, the question lingers: did justice truly prevail? On the night of March 18, 2018, chaos erupted in Riverview, Florida. At 11:43 p.m., a 911 call captured the chilling screams of 33-year-old Kenyatta Barron as she begged for her life. Moments later, she was dead, shot, and then brutally beaten with a shotgun by her 29-year-old boyfriend, Ronnie O'Neill III. But the horror didn't end there. O'Neill then turned on their 9-year-old daughter, Ron Nevea, who had special needs and was unable to speak. He savagely beat her to death with a hatchet. His final victim was his 8-year-old son, whom he stabbed multiple times before setting their entire house ablaze. Miraculously, the boy survived and 3 years later, at age 11, testified against his father, revealing the unimaginable brutality he had endured. O'Neill, who chose to represent himself in court, delivered an unhinged defense, yelling at jurors and claiming a conspiracy against him. He even cross-examined his own son, but the evidence was undeniable. He was convicted of double murder, attempted murder, arson, and aggravated child abuse. The jury recommended life in prison, and the judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms plus 90 years. His surviving son, now safe, found a new family, adopted by one of the detectives who worked on the case. Newlyweds are supposed to be in their happiest days, but for 21-year-old Angie Diaz, her marriage ended in unimaginable horror. On January 11, 2023, just 3 months after their wedding, police arrived at the Waller County, Texas, cabin Angie shared with her husband, Jared Dicus, to find a gruesome scene. Angie had been decapitated, her head left in the shower. Dicus, just 23 years old, confessed to the brutal killing. Those who knew Angie described a young woman full of life, working tirelessly to support herself and her family in Nicaragua. Tragically, there were warning signs. Dicus had a history of violent behavior, including a DWI arrest just 2 months before the murder. In July 2024, Dicus was sentenced to 40 years in prison after pleading guilty to murder. Angie's death serves as a chilling reminder of how domestic violence can escalate to the unthinkable. The question remains, how many more lives will be lost before real change is made? What started as a petty argument turned into a night of unimaginable horror. On October 21, 2018, Tyrone Johnson and his girlfriend, Stephanie Willis, were at their Tampa, Florida apartment when tensions escalated over changing the TV channel to watch a football game. But instead of walking away, Johnson grabbed his Glock 22.40 caliber pistol. In a fit of rage, he shot Stephanie multiple times, then turned the gun on her 10-year-old son, Ricky. Johnson claimed Ricky was caught in the crossfire, but the evidence painted a chilling picture. Ricky was shot while hiding under his bed, a final act of terror that sealed Johnson's fate. In November 2021, a jury unanimously recommended the death penalty. Despite appeals, in 2025, the Florida Supreme Court upheld his sentence. Stephanie, a home health aide, and Ricky, a 5th-grade drummer, had their lives stolen in an instant. A brutal reminder that domestic violence doesn't just claim partners, it destroys families. When Yvonne Baldelli moved to Panama in September 2011 with her boyfriend, Brian Carl Brimmiger, she thought they were starting a new life. Instead, she disappeared. Her family's worst fears came true when, in 2013, her dismembered remains were found stuffed in a military-style duffel bag in a remote Panamanian jungle. Brimmiger, a former Marine, brutally murdered Yvonne on or around November 27, 2011. He then used her bank cards and sent fake emails to her family to cover his tracks. While pretending she was alive, he had already moved back to the U.S. to live with another woman, the mother of his young daughter. In a chilling detail, Brimmiger even joked on social media about selling the machete he used to dismember Yvonne, but the evidence caught up with him. In 2016, Brimmiger pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, admitting to stabbing Yvonne and dismembering her body. He was sentenced to 26 years in federal prison. Yvonne's dreams were stolen, her life cut short at 42 by the very person she trusted the most. The case serves as a grim reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the importance of seeking justice for victims of violent crimes. Lise Dodd was just weeks away from becoming a mother when her life was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. On June 9, 2022, her ex-boyfriend, Dundrea Holloway, arrived at her home in Alton, Illinois. Not to reconcile, but to kill. Holloway decapitated Lisa, then threw her head in a dumpster, leaving her body for her mother to find. The horrifying scene shattered a family and a community. Police described it as an act of savage monstrosity. In January 2025, Holloway was sentenced to 60 years in prison for Lisa's murder. But no punishment can undo the devastation he caused. Lisa, who was 8 months pregnant, and her unborn child never got their chance at life. A chilling reminder of how domestic violence can turn deadly. Emma Walker was a 16-year-old cheerleader with a bright future, but on November 21, 2016, her life was cut short in the most shocking way by someone she once loved. Her ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old William Riley Gall, a college football player, couldn't accept their breakup. He stalked Emma, sending cryptic messages and even faking his own kidnapping to manipulate her. When that failed, he took a darker path. In the early hours of the morning, Gall fired 2 shots into Emma's bedroom from outside her home, striking her in the head as she slept. Gall claimed it was a tragic accident, but the evidence proved otherwise. In May 2018, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 51 years. Emma's story is a heartbreaking reminder that love should never be dangerous. And when red flags appear, they should never be ignored. On April 25, 2016, former police officer Jeffrey Hawkins made a haunting call to 911 from his home in Colerain Township, Ohio.
I just shot and killed my wife.
His words were chilling. I just shot and killed my wife. His wife, Joanne Hawkins, 59, was found dead from multiple gunshot wounds. During the call, Hawkins calmly confessed to the murder, citing financial issues as the motive. He claimed his wife had emptied their bank account on his birthday. In court, Hawkins pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter and felonious assault.
I wish I could change what happened.
He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The case shocked the community, raising questions about domestic violence and the justice system's response. Joanne's life was tragically cut short, leaving her family to grapple with the loss. The case serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic disputes turned deadly. On February 9, 2007, Tara Grant, a successful businesswoman and mother of 2, vanished from her home in Macomb County, Michigan. Her husband, Stephen Grant, waited 5 days before reporting her missing, then played the worried spouse, pleading for her return on TV. But behind the scenes, he was hiding a gruesome secret. Weeks later, on March 2nd, police discovered parts of Tara's dismembered body in the family garage. Stephen had strangled her during an argument, then used a hacksaw to dispose of her remains. When investigators closed in, he fled into the woods, surviving in freezing temperatures for days before his capture. In December 2007, Grant was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 50 to 80 years in prison. Tara's children were left without a mother, and a community was left questioning how love could turn into something so monstrous. These stories are a haunting reminder that love can sometimes take a dark and deadly turn. The women in these cases never saw the true danger until it was too late, trapped in relationships that ended in unimaginable horror. But should we have seen the warning signs? Should justice have come sooner? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more true crime cases that will leave you speechless, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Some crimes are too shocking to be forgotten, and we'll be here to uncover them all.